Last time on part 1 of the basement build.
Hey everyone, and welcome to my Valheim Underground Basement Base video part 2. If you have not seen part 1, make sure you hit the card up in the top right and watch that first. If you like the video, make sure you like it. Please do subscribe, it helps me out a lot, and hit the little bell so you're notified when I upload future videos. You can also follow me on other social media like Twitch and TikTok. Now, let's get started with part 2. So the first thing I wanted to point out in part 2 is we are building a chimney for our furnaces and our kilns. The reason we're doing this is not because you will get smoke inhalation in a basement base or an underground base. It is because we are putting a ground floor base above the basement. And if you do not have a chimney system, smoke will rise into that section of your base and cause smoke inhalation issues. Now you can see we're putting the third layer of stone walls up in our underground basement. Make sure you have wood so that you can build temporary stairs to gain access to the ground floor so you can go get more stone and more wood and other supplies that you may need. We're placing the fourth layer of stone walls on our base. You can see that we're doubling those wall sections up in some areas where the ground elevation is too low on the outside. You can also solve this by raising the ground elevation or placing floor tiles at ground level. Just be careful if you raise the elevation though, you can pull the ground into your base and have to remine it out. And here you can see that I actually got stuck. This can be much worse if that gap goes all the way down to the ground floor, so make sure you do fill this in somehow. Much of Valheim is not flat. You can see that there is ground protruding over the edge tiles of our ground floor. I took a mining pick and a hoe, and I mined and flattened that out around the entire perimeter of my base. We realized our base wasn't big enough, and so we expanded it. And then we realized it still wasn't big enough, and expanded it some more. And expanded it some more. After which we flattened the ground with the hoe and placed floor tiles just like before. At this point you can see it's really starting to turn out well. It looks a lot like a base. From the ground floor, you can see that the base is turning out really nice, super clean looking. We have 4 layers of walls up, and I'm flattening out the ground around the base so we have a nice flat surface to build on. As you can see, we have some gaps, and you might too, so if that's the case, make sure you fill it in somehow, either with floor tiles, an extra wall, or fill it in with the hoe. And I'm just finishing up that edge tile. Here I'm raising the ground just like I discussed previously to make sure that there's no gaps in between the outside wall and the ground when you walk around. Here we're deciding where we want to place the furnaces and kilns. And I'm finishing the chimneys off now. To be clear, this is not the chimney design we ended up using after the first few days. Tragic developed something different, which you'll be able to see in part 3. Make sure you put thatch roofs on top of any wood that you do not want to get water damage. This includes the chimneys here, otherwise over time those items will be destroyed. Here I realized that the workbench was not in a conducive place to build on ground floor, and so I moved it. I also started placing walls around the workbench as well as a 26-degree thatch roof. This allows you to use the workbench to repair items and craft items. I also placed doors in front of the workbench to protect it from mobs. The last thing you want is a fulling to come over and destroy it. Here I'm placing a door in front of the steps down to our base. This will prevent goblins and fullings from chasing me. And I'm now placing the perimeter supporting beams around my base. This will support a thatch roof that will prevent water damage from destroying the items inside our base when we're offline. This is a live server with multiple people playing on it, so just because we're offline doesn't mean that other people are as well. So we need to make sure that everything's protected from water damage at all times. Moving that workbench around, it's actually a second one, just so I can build everywhere I need to. Don't fret if the lattice or the checkers board of supporting beams aren't perfect. The point here is make it look as pretty as possible, but it's really intended to support thatch roofs. You could also place wooden floors on these beams. However, I'm not sure how high you could build over top of the basement. It's important to note that we actually replaced some of these wooden beams long ways across the base with iron beams to support stone foundation. And this allowed us to actually build 2 stories above with stone and wood. Also, I think now's the perfect time to interject. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and hit the little bell. It'll really help me out. You can also leave a comment down below and tell me your thoughts. What would you do differently? And what kind of bases have you made in Valheim? Make sure you connect your beams to the chimneys if possible. It's important to keep that structurally sound all the way across the entire top. This was pretty monotonous, but it's definitely something we had to do. And when it's done, it kind of looks cool. Also, if you dug your basement as deep as ours, be careful, don't fall. I fell twice in a row and ended up dying. You'll start to notice as I get closer to the center, some of the beams start to turn other colors, not green. They're yellow, lime green, orange, or even red. That indicates that they will break or may break as you put additional weight on top of them or build higher. We realized we definitely needed to put some supporting beams down to the center of our base. I'm doing that here. It's pretty easy. You just look up and snap where you want the beams, just like building anything else. The cross beams, the X-shaped supporting beams, also help out a lot. We ended up using them across the entire center beam section of our base. And then we ran another beam across the bottom of them. This beam across the bottom of the X beams didn't really seem to be needed, but it did make everything look nicer. Also note that I'm actually standing on the ground of the basement, so I didn't have to build any sort of scaffolding to do this. The build range in Valheim is pretty far. This is actually pretty common in Valheim. You think you might need to build scaffolding, but you don't. The build range is pretty far, so always check before you build ramps and scaffolding and go out of your way to collect all the resources to do that. And you can see also that it's raining right now, and everything in our base is getting damaged because it's getting hit by that rain. And so it's important that you get that thatch roof up. We also built supports along the edge, or the end of that center beam section. That just helped even out the stability. And I started to place the thatch roofs. Placing the thatch roofs was actually really annoying. They kept snapping to the wrong supporting beam, and I don't wish this upon anyone, so when it's your turn, have fun. And this is why you build those doors. Every once in a while, especially in the plains, goblins will start attacking you. They actually almost killed us here. We had to run away from them until we lost threat. And I highly recommend, until you get good gear and you have a decent amount of health, that you stay away from those spear-throwing goblins. They're killers. Also, you noticed there, I quickly mined or hoed some of the ground out. You might remember earlier I said when you're raising the elevation of the ground around your base, that might happen. It's fixable, but just make sure you notice it. I also placed some higher walls around the perimeter of my base to help defend against fullings and other attacks, which I won't spoil, but as you kill bosses in this game, the enemies that were in the zone of that boss will spawn in surprise attacks no matter what zone you're in. You'll also notice that I'm placing thatch roofs on the doors that enter the perimeter of my base, as well as the stairs. This is important because if you do not do this, those items will take water damage. And last but not least, I'm filling out the sides of our entrance and putting some finishing touches on the beams. You can see we have the thatch roof up, and it looks really nice. I really love base building in Valheim. It's pretty cool, isn't it? If you liked today's video, make sure you leave a like, help me out by subscribing, and click the little bell so that you're notified when I drop new videos. If you'd like to see more content from ThatGuyRoz, make sure you check out my Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and Reddit. Last but not least, if you liked today's video, make sure you stay tuned for part 3 of the Underground Basement Base Build Guide.